Hello, Samarana. I am Samarana instructor Jillian Varney here and the host of Talk Tuesday. And today we have a very special guest, our other Samarana instructor, Sara Hunt. And Sara, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Sara. I am a children maternity newborn photographer in the Houston, Texas area. I've been doing photography, oh gosh, probably now going on 9 years, I guess. Um, Before I kind of like switched careers. So before I was in the medical field, and then I kind of just started doing photography on the side and just fell in love with it. And so I completely switched careers and tackled photography full time, and so that's what I've been doing for the past several years. And I'm super excited. I've been with Samarana for a couple years now, as well as an instructor, and super excited to be here today to talk to y'all about mini sessions.
So, if you guys have any questions that you would like to ask Sara today about how she hosts her mini sessions, we are here to answer your questions. Questions that you will. You guys, I am so sorry. I'm holding my finger down on my speaker without realizing it. Any questions you guys have, please post them in the comments. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can in the next half an hour. So please do go ahead and get started with those questions. And Sara, meanwhile, I know that we did have some questions asked earlier this week. So if you wanted to start off with one of those questions, maybe we can break the ice that way.
Sure. So I know one of the questions, I think I saw this a couple times, was, how much time do you allow for mini sessions? And for me, my minis are usually done anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. Now, if I'm doing that's usually my typical amount of time for studio for sure, and outdoor. Now, if I'm doing an outdoor session, sometimes I will have them 20 minutes, but for the most part, they're like 10 to 15 minutes. They're nice and quick. To me, in my opinion, anything over 20 minutes is way too long for a mini session.
I would agree with that completely. I feel like, especially when you have like themed minis for children more than anything, if you don't get what you're looking for in the first 20 minutes, you're probably not going to get it unless you spend an extended amount of time. So I would absolutely agree. I've tuned mine down to, even with unicorn minis, being 15 minutes long.
Yeah. And I think that like 10 to 15 minutes is a crazy amount of time to get what you need. Especially if you kind of have the poses that you know ahead of time what you're going to be doing, right, what you're going to be shooting. You're able to just kind of, knock those out really quick and capture what you need to fill a big gallery. My minis are usually, I give about 5 images typically for the minis. Now, if I do mini sessions, and then I do limited edition sessions, and we can talk about that later. But those are more where I allow a little bit more time, and then I do kind of include a little bit more images with those. But those are kind of more the fine art type sessions. But
right.
But yeah, like I said, I think the time I see a lot of photographers when they're advertising minis, and I'll see them like, they're like 30-minute sessions, and they give, 15, 20 images. And I don't know, I think that's way too long, and then you're giving away your work.
I would agree. But I also will say that I think we've all made that mistake early in our careers. Yeah. It's like one of those growing pains that you quickly learn that rather than, and everybody does their structuring of their packages differently, but perhaps that's more down the lines of when they're thinking mini session in their head, they're thinking a shorter regular session versus a full session. But mini sessions, I would agree that they really should be kept very small, and that's where I agree. I have no problem getting a very full gallery and golden images just in those 10, 15 minutes. I think it works out really best, especially with kids. Yeah. What are you, do you mind sharing like what your favorite minis to do are?
Oh man. I think my favorite are probably like in the spring, any type of wildflower outdoor minis, just because it's so beautiful. And it's springtime, everything's green outside, and the flowers are blooming. They're different colors. dressing little girls up in fancy dresses to kind of go along with the colors of the flowers. Those are what I love. But then I also love like holiday stuff. I love doing Santa minis during the holidays, just because clients go crazy over those and the kids love it. And then trying to like think of different kind of unique holiday stuff, trying to like mix it up each year, change it up a little bit where you're not offering the exact same thing every single year.
Right. It could get bland.
Yeah. So I do love that too. But then again, I also love like I said, I call them limited edition sessions, where you kind of get to be more artistic. So like for those, I offer like mermaid and carnival and stuff like that. More fine art, like fine art mommy and me and studio. So I do enjoy those too, but I love that kind of fine art style session.
I would agree. And that actually reminded me of another question that we had asked earlier this week, and that was regarding having multiple siblings within sessions. Do you encompass that within your pricing, or do you have an additional fee per child if it's after one sibling? How do you work that out in your pricing?
So usually, if it's just like a typical mini, like a holiday mini session done in my studio, I kind of focus on, or I think about how my setup is, the space that I'm dealing with. So if I'm having, my studio is very small. So if I'm having a holiday session done in my studio, I'm just going to basically limit that down to just the kids and not including like other family members, just because I don't have the space and my setup is relatively small.
Right.
So I don't really like, for studio, I will say typically no more than like 4 or 5 children, but I'm limited to only in the immediate family. So I don't have cousins and friends coming.
I agree. That is not, or within the household is how I like to think of it. Right. Because otherwise they are going to try to start conjoining sessions. And I would agree with that. For me, I prefer not to do extended family sessions. And if I do, it's going to be a price worthwhile.
Yes. Make it worth it. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Now I will say, I don't really charge an extra fee for additional siblings. Unless now if I'm doing a fine art mermaid session that's outside. Now those require a lot more work, require a lot more editing. So there is when I might limit, to no more than 2, or if there is going to be like 3, then it'll be an additional fee.
Which makes sense because you're making sure you're covered for your time, and that's fair.
Yeah. But for like normal outdoor mini sessions with families, I don't really have a limit. Well, I don't charge extra for, over 5. Like I'll say 5, between 5 and 6, but it has to be within your immediate family. Just to,
right. That's how I feel. Occasionally, I might personally make like a little bit of adjustment in the rule if it's 2 cousins, for instance. Sometimes I have done that, but general rule of hand, I would agree that it's within the household is how I try to base those off.
Yep.
And then, so I know that we had a couple other really great questions. Do you want to pull from those lists that we had earlier this week?
Yeah. So let's see. I think one was about pricing. Like, how do you price your minis?
Yes. The important question.
Yeah. Pricing is, it's tricky. I think this is how I see it. I think you should price your minis accordingly so that you're making the profit that you want to make off of these, but you're not overbooking yourself. So think about a number that you want to make for that mini session. And then think about how many clients you want to take on for that mini session. And then determine how much you should charge per client so that you can reach your goal.
Right.
I just see so many photographers, charging little to nothing for their sessions. And then they're having to put so much work into it, and they're having to book, 50 to 100 clients just to make a decent amount for these sessions, and I don't think that makes sense.
It does not make sense to me either. So much more work, so much more work
into mini sessions. The planning, the setups that you create, not even during the mini session, but before, like taking the time to create your setup, photographing it, advertising it, then meeting your clients during the session, prepping before they come, meeting your clients during the session, shooting, taking the setup down afterwards, and then spending all the extra time afterwards editing the images. I mean, it's so much work, and you're spending, several hours a day for these mini sessions. And then
that's like a really good point too, is that when we hear mini, people think like less work, but really the mini sessions are not less work. They are less time, probably less images, but it's not less work for the setup, the tear down, like you said, and all of the stuff. I've said this again because we've had other topics in the last few weeks, like cost of doing business. And we also need to always keep in mind that we wear all the hats in our business. Most of us, some of us have employees, but most of us are doing all the jobs, like you said, and that means that we need to be paid for every moment that we're working. That's not personal time, that's business. So you do want to make sure to price that in. And that led me to the other question I know that we had asked, which is it legal to shoot outdoors? Which brought me to permits, which should also be put into the factoring your cost to do mini sessions, and that would be permit fees.
Yeah. So definitely when you're working with outdoor sessions, you definitely want to make sure that where you're shooting, you have permission to shoot there. If it's at a public park, usually, or state park, usually they'll have signs up, at the entrance of the park with their rules and guidelines, and usually they allow photographers to shoot there. I know some parks here in the Houston area, I think some photographers kind of ruined it for the rest of us, because they would, do smoke bomb sessions there. They would do confetti sessions. And so the park, they were just like, they've had enough. They wouldn't allow it anymore. And so they, so I guess it just depends on the park. But yeah, if it's like a state park, for sure, you can always check with, they probably should have a website or a phone number to call.
Most of everywhere you could find that information on a website. And I would agree with you. I have actually seen more and more of that in the last year, where park districts, not even just state parks, but park districts in general, are prohibiting photographers to enter the property for that very reason. Not only that, last year I saw probably some of the sunflower fields here in Illinois went from charging a very minimal fee to come in and shoot to charging up to $200 for a session, which it's very much for the disrespect. Unfortunately, it is that one bad classmate that ruined recess for all of us, like you said. And it is the glitter, it's the confetti, it's, the balloons even leaving. And especially in state parks, it is bad for the environment. So we should always be respectful and clean that up and leave it how we found it. And when you're in fields, I think it's important not to trample over the farmers' other flowers and everything, because this is indeed how they make a living. And I think that sometimes photographers forget that we are responsible for anyone that we bring on our property. We need to be responsible for them. And that means, professionally making sure that they understand they can't be disrespectful to whichever venue you're at. And that's, that also, like, I'm sure you've heard this too, where people will say, what's the saying? Ask for permission later. I'm not getting the saying correct, but it is that. And I mean, although I understand the concept of it, I don't think I agree in this type of situation, because you can get yourself in some sticky situations or even have legal issues doing so. So you definitely you have to be careful.
I've had that happen to me. So especially when I'm out looking for outdoor sessions, wildflowers, bluebonnets are crazy here in Texas. So everyone wants those type of sessions. So I usually have to drive, out of town, like probably an hour and a half to 2 hours for those type of locations. And most of the time, those places are on private property. So I happened to just come across this field. It was gorgeous field. You could tell it was probably private property. There wasn't a fence, but because there's not a fence doesn't mean that that's not, someone's land. So there happened to be a house right next to this vacant lot. And so I just went, knocked on the door, and it was a sweet old lady. She was like, yes, that's, this is part of my property. I told her I would pay her to, if she would allow me to shoot there. She was like, of course, you don't have to pay me, but I did, just, because I feel like you should.
I agree with that too. You were very much, we're taking something, we need to give something. And even if that means bartering for something that maybe for some reason that they need photography service, and if you like bartering, make sure to give back.
Yeah. So I brought a couple clients to this place. We had gotten permission from this lady. And then so many cars were just driving by, and they just hopped out and started trampling through the field, didn't even ask permission. And it's just really frustrating because people that do that, kind of ruin it for the others that actually got permission. And so, the next time they may not want you to shoot there anymore.
Right.
So that's real important, is to, if you're unsure about it, always try to research and ask, and not just assume that it's available for you to use.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Sarah. I really do think it's very important that we're always showing respect to whatever location we're on, whether it is a public setting or private. And especially like it's such a gift to be able to go onto somebody's property. Like I have some, I love to collaborate and I love to network. So and especially going back to having unique things, that's one thing that I do look for, is I like to shoot in exclusive areas that other photographers do not have access to. And for me, that means I need to always make sure that I take care of my vendors, and I'm always being respectful. And when it comes to actually pulling permits, if you guys aren't familiar, most of the time you can just contact your municipal building in your city or I live in a village technically, but just contact them and they're going to be able to answer that question. Sometimes their website will also give you that. The city of Chicago is a great example. Anybody that has experience getting a permit from the city of Chicago, their head hurts from even hearing me speak about it right now, because it's not fun. It is not great, but they have really cracked down on making sure, especially because we have tourist attractions there, such as the Bean, other items like that. But generally, it's not that hard in most other cities. It's as simple as going on their website, pulling the form, and I would say that most typically it's around $20. It's not excessively expensive to pull a permit. So in my opinion, I think that it's worth the $20 to ensure that you're following guidelines and are not going to get embarrassed on your session when a park ranger stops you and kicks you out.
Definitely. Yep. Yes. Exactly. But that's another thing that photographers need to keep in mind is, when you're trying to plan for your pricing for these type of things, if you are shooting outdoors, if you're shooting at a tree farm, if you're shooting at a park that requires, an expensive permit, then you need to take all that into consideration into your pricing, because or props that you rent, if you are renting a vintage truck for your session, if Santa sessions, you pay Santa per hour, and that gets expensive. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that you're taking all of that into consideration when you're pricing. So
and with the vehicles, I'm sorry, that reminded me of another thing. So I actually used to own a vintage vehicle that I did rent out to other photographers. I owned a 1974, sorry, there was something floating in my face, a 1974 Volkswagen bus, and we did rent it to other photographers. And with that said, I think it's important to have in your contract also that clients are responsible for damage that incurs on properties or props or vehicles. And I feel like that kind of gives them accountability too, because unfortunately I've had times that wild things have happened. I think the worst one was, it wasn't my bus. This is prior to me owning one. I had rented a red Volkswagen bus every Christmas season to do mini sessions with it. And a client came without asking with 2 German Shepherds, which I'm a dog lover. I have a German Shepherd. So I love German Shepherds, but I also know their nature. And if they would have spoken to me about it, I would have told them not to do this, because I was on a horse farm that had barn cats. And out of anything that could have happened, a cat came into the situation, and instead of fleeing away, it ran inside the bus. It was like worst case scenario ever. So on that day, thankfully there was no damage incurred, but I was very grateful to have had that in my contract should it have. So it was one of those moments I was like, woo, that was close. Like,
yeah, could have been a disaster.
Yes. Okay, guys, so we have about 10 minutes left. And if you're just joining us, I am Summer instructor Jillian Barnay, the host of Talk Tuesday. I am here with Summer instructor Sara Hunt, who is talking about mini sessions today. So should you have any questions, please do drop them in the comments. We have about 10 minutes left today, and we would love to answer your questions. So, and Sara, if you would like to pick any of the other ones, yeah, we have some great questions.
One thing I want to mention before I forget, and I think it's super important for these type of sessions, when you're planning a mini session, it's so important that you're using your own work to advertise for these. Do not use other people's work to use for your own advertising. For one, that's illegal.
Yes, that is yes.
Two, you want to show your clients what they are going to expect the end result to be. So if your setup is just a little bit different from what you're advertising, someone else's images, the clients are probably going to pick up on that. And they're going to be like, this setup does not look exactly like what you advertised. Also, the quality of the image, the quality of the work. If you're advertising someone else's stuff, you want the same image. You want the quality to be the same, I guess I should say, so that your clients, it's not deceiving to your clients. It's happened to me several times that I know of, and just random photographers that are in other states that I don't even know, will message me and be like, hey, this photographer in my area is using your images, and I just, I follow you, I know what your images look like, and some will even have the logo, the watermark left on the image they're using for their advertisements. And a lot of times photographers that are just starting out don't realize that they're doing anything wrong, which is fine. It's great for us to educate them and to help them so that they won't make that mistake again.
Understand the importance behind it. Yes, absolutely. So, not to mention you're kind of setting yourself up for failure by doing it in general, and it's just bad for business.
Well, it's just really not fair, especially to the original photographer, because, I spend money renting trucks, renting a Santa, creating a setup, and then I spend time photographing. I usually photograph my own kids for my advertising for minis. Spend all that time doing that, and then spend time editing. And it's just not fair for someone else to come along and just swoop that image up and be like, okay, I'm just going to use it for mine. And even if you state, this is not my image, this is, if you give credit to the other photographer.
I feel like they think that's like a loophole, is by saying this isn't my image, but unless you have been granted that permission, it is not okay to do it.
It's just, just take
that was a great topic to bring up. I think that's so relevant and important and you're right. So many people do not know that.
Yeah.
And it can get you in trouble really fast, not only legally, but just in your community in general. It can really put a bad reputation on you for doing it. So it's best to avoid it. We actually do have some questions coming in. So
awesome. I'm not seeing the questions for some reason.
I will be happy to read them for you, friend.
Oh, comments. I see them now. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Let's see. Okay,
so
what
Jacqueline, are you reading Jacqueline's?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, are you reading Jacqueline's?
Yes. Okay. What are some mini session ideas that are always in style and popular? Good question. Glitter, for some reason, I have so much good luck with glitter sessions. They are super popular, and you don't have to charge like a whole bunch for them. And yes, they are a lot of work, but the clients go crazy over them. You know, their little girls are dressed up like a princess and glittery dresses and the crowns and the little wands, the star wands. And the kids absolutely love them too. They have so much fun because it's the only time that they're going to be allowed to play in, like, you know, a bowl full of glitter. So glitter are super popular for me, always very successful. And then I have my glitter tutorial here in Samarana. If you need tips, I go over all of my tips for creating successful glitter sessions. And then also what's popular for mine are, again, wildflowers, bluebonnets, because again, like I said, here in Texas, clients go crazy over them.
I feel like everywhere, like any region that you're in, flowers are just like a absolute success. I know here in Illinois, tulips in the spring, and then sunflowers like late summer. Those are like huge. Like I have people booking those now in February, so they're just ready for them. So I would agree, those are really big ones.
And then anything holiday related, really. My Santa sessions are always super popular. Clients always love those. What else? Mommy and Me, for sure. Those are popular. Anything that you can kind of like do to set yourself apart, I guess. Like if other people in your area aren't doing this sort of thing, like if you've, you know, made yourself a unique kind of session, then that will usually, you know, attract a lot of people. And then, you know, clients will book you for it, and then they're going to tell all their friends about it, and then their friends are going to want to book you too. So anything like that is really gonna. And what I've learned in the past is just try it out. I did Valentine's minis like when I first started out in photography, and I didn't get much interest in those. So
you read my mind, because I was going to bring that up and ask you about some of those
since. And so I've just, you know, just figured, okay, those aren't working, so I'm not gonna
push them off the table. I would agree. I never have had big not enough interest for me to justify building a set every year and doing it. I would agree that it's just, you know, so I move on from those pretty quickly. Another one though, I think that is really popular is the unicorn sessions. I know that they are a saturated theme, but like Sara mentioned, you have to make it your own. I know that one thing that separates mine from the dozens of other photographers in my area that does them is that I take the time. First, I think that I host them much more safely than any other photographer. I have more experience in equestrian photography, and I take the time to edit out the adults. And there are 2 adults. I keep the parents in the scene, and I keep a horse handler, and then I keep the rein and the bridle on as well. So all of those things, yes, they're more work and editing, but I feel like you can't be too safe with animals and children. I much rather take the time to edit than ever have on my conscience anyone getting injured during one of the sessions. So that's one thing that I do, though, is I take those things out. So the session is hosted very safely. The parents feel better about it. And then they get these incredible fine art painterly images that no one else is offering. So that's something I do. Now we're getting all the questions in right at the very last few minutes. Like,
okay, let's see. What is your price difference between a regular mini versus a limited edition? Do you add a special products for limited? Okay, yeah, I think someone else was asking about products. Okay, so my minis, my regular mini sessions usually start about $425. And then they go up depending on the mini. So like my Santa minis are quite a bit. I think this year they were like $495, and then they go up from there. So my limited edition sessions are, like I said, more like the fine art painterly look, mermaid, carnival, blue bonnets, those type things that are done typically outdoors, where I know that I'm not going to be able to get as many clients done because I only shoot at golden hour. And so I know I'm not going to be able to get as many clients done as I do for studio. So then I price it higher. because I'm doing even less clients than I usually do, and I want to make I want to make more because it is outdoor. It's more editing, and it's a fine art product. So those usually, I believe, start at, I don't know, anywhere between $650 and they go up to like $895, depending on the session.
Now, that's very similar to mine also. I also start at $650 and it goes up to about $1,000.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, like I had this past year, I had it was a studio holiday session. The mom actually booked, it was a 10-minute time slot. She booked 2 because she wanted to have more time. She bought all of the images. So like they were 5 images. So booking the 2 time slots, she got 10. But then she wanted to have all the images edited. So that was like 40 images. And I mean, she spent something else. I think she bought a product or something like that. But I mean, it was like a $2,000 sale off of a mini session, and it can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Do you have like a set price for your additional images? Because I know some photographers don't allow a la carte on mini sessions.
That's what I was also going to mention. So like when you're doing minis, I do typically 5 images from my mini, and then the gallery that I send them is going to show usually more. So it'll show like anywhere between 15 and 20 images, and then they can upgrade to either 5 more images, 10 more images, and that's how you make more profit. Right. So for my limited edition sessions, I usually do anywhere from 7 to 10 images. And then sometimes the question was, do you add a special product for those? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll do like, I'll include like a canvas, like a 16 by 20 canvas, or an acrylic print or something like that, just to kind of make it a little bit more enticing. I'll include like a glass USB drive, something that, I mean, those are like inexpensive for me to go ahead and include into your session.
And I would like to recommend a great product. This will be my first year offering this for my unicorn mini sessions that I do. And Graphy Studio has a beautiful storybook album, and it actually looks very much like a fairy tale album or book, I should say. And I'm very excited to start offering that. So that's like something, and I price everything in. I'm not giving too many options. I think to simplify it is like the easiest thing on there. But I would agree with Sara too, that it does make sense to give them a number of like, okay, if you want more, this is how many more that you purchase versus letting them do one. And I think it's also really important to keep in mind that you're pricing those appropriately, even if you are doing individual a la carte. Price them appropriately, especially if you're doing fine art editing on there, because I know in the past when I was just starting doing these sessions, I was killing myself and burning myself out during the summer because I would have so many additional images purchased, but I was not charging enough for them. And it would absolutely just give me so much backup. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for business. It wasn't good for my clients because there was an extended amount of wait for their editing. So I was learned from my mistakes to definitely price those appropriately if you're going to. And that leads into, so Kim asked another question then about, is there a full gallery upcharge? And I'll start with my 2 cents on that. I would never, under any circumstances, offer a price for full gallery. That's my opinion on it. I think that my price for each individual image or a group of images, as Sara does, is it. Like I'm not going to give you a huge discount for buying the entire gallery, because I know Sara and I both edit. We're not batch editing. We're like, our editing is fine art on a lot of these. And whether you buy 5 or you buy 30, each one takes an extended amount of time of editing. So I'm not going to give a huge price break for me to have to do more work. Essentially, you're doing overtime work for free at that point. That is just my opinion on them, of course. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think I forgot to answer your question earlier, but I think you asked what my price per additional digital file, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I do $150 per additional file. Mm-hmm. And typically for mini sessions, usually. So that kind of, I say if they want to upgrade, I will say, okay, you can purchase, 5 additional images at this rate, or 1 additional image for $150. And it's a no-brainer. They're going to go with the higher rate to get more images.
I call that gentle incentive.
Yes.
I don't like being pushy for sales. The whole reason I like doing what we do is that it's a happy thing, especially working with children. I'm sure you could agree that everybody's so excited, everybody's so happy, and that makes it a lot easier for me, especially when that adrenaline's rushing because their babies are so cute.
Yes.
It makes it easier to sell, and I agree, like giving them that little bit of room, even if it's like a discount on a bundle of them, it's gentle incentive for them to do that.
Yep. I just feel like digital files are like gold, like they're so valuable. And why would you just want to give those away for like $25?
That should really be your most expensive item, is to purchase a digital.
Exactly, because that's what your clients most of the time want. They want the digitals. They don't care about products. So you need to,
we do live in the social media era, pardon. So I think that you're right. Especially working with children, people want to post their photos on Facebook. So I understand it. And that's why I will always offer digitals, but you do need to price them accordingly to not completely just lose out on the potential loss of product sales.
Yeah. Yep. Let me see. What is the max number? Okay, what is the max number of images you provide in a gallery for the client to choose from? Minis are different, obviously, because I don't want to be editing a whole bunch. So typically for minis, I will give them, I guess it depends on how the session goes. If I have a session that has 3 siblings, I know I'm going to pump out a lot of images, because you're going to get images with all 3 of them, and then individually, and doing different things, poses. You're going to be able to fill that gallery full. So it depends on the session, but usually I will send anywhere between 10 to 20 maybe for them to choose from, if it's a really, really good session. And then they can choose from there. And then what I have done differently this year is I've been, for the most part, just soft proofing and sending them the soft proof gallery. And that was a big change for me, because in the past I edited all of my favorites and then sent them. I'm very visual. So in my mind, I was like, okay, they're going to need to see what I see, what my vision is in each image. But it got to the point where I was just like, I cannot do this to myself, because I'm spending and I love editing, and I spend so much time in editing that it was just, it did not make sense to me. I couldn't do it anymore.
It could burn you out. And then again, that goes back to pricing, that you're actually costing yourself more for the same service. And I think that's a really hot topic and an important topic, because we see a lot of different opinions in our whole community about that. And I personally have never ever sent edited galleries, never. My view on it is I'm not going to spend one moment editing anything that they're not going to buy. I don't have the time to do it. So I've always soft proofed and sent them that way, and it has always been fine. I always feel like they booked me off of my merit, off of my portfolio. They've seen what my finished product look like, and I'm not afraid to show raw images. I did change it myself this year to where I actually do the gallery reveal in person directly after the session. It's been going really well so far, and that's similar to how I used to do it. I used to actually do it right on the place with an iPad Pro. Now I do it, and I'll probably still do that in flower fields, for instance. I will. Yeah. My assistant will probably do it though while I'm shooting the next session. But now I have an IPS room in my studio, so I do that. Or again, you could bring stuff and have an assistant with you on the go, and I think that it works just as well. They're not buying any less doing it this way for me at least right now.
Yeah.
That was.
So I think there was one other question that I have written down. And the question was, what are the disadvantages of mini sessions? Disadvantages are, they're a lot of work. in my opinion, they're a lot of work. The
short and simple.
prepping, yeah, planning, prepping, shooting, editing, that sort of thing. Long hours, sometimes you're spending, I mean, I don't like to do all day minis, but I'm usually like 4 to 5 hours if I'm in studio. That's long for me for mini sessions.
Same.
I don't want to be doing more than that. Like, I'm getting older, my back hurts. Like,
you literally read my mind. I'm the older I get, the less time consecutively I'll shoot. Like,
yeah, I'm like, I don't have time for that. I have a family, especially on weekends. If I'm doing minis on weekends, I mean, my kids have, like, my son is in baseball nonstop with him. And so I'm like, we got to go. We're go. It's always go. So yeah. And you're dealing with multiple clients. So that's also an advantage. And whereas opposed to booking a full session, you're just kind of catering to that one client. With minis, it's, 10 to 12 or how many clients you're doing. Let's see.
Physically, mentally, all of it is more work.
Yeah. And then you may be attracting your less ideal client because they're more, some of them, not all, but some may, kind of be want more for less, or
again, you're reading my mind like left and right, because that's exactly some of the situations I've had. And I had somebody do that recently where they came back after the fact, and I'm happy that it was due to loving so many images out of the gallery I sent them. This was prior to me switching to doing it right after the session. But they said, okay, but why are all of these other images in the gallery and I don't get to keep them? And why do I only get this set amount of images? And I let them know, well, this was always very clearly advertised that this is how many images that you're purchasing. This is how it's been structured. This is, we actually went over on the phone. You read it on my website, and you also signed a contract with the same information on there. And that's how I handled it. I very, very much was poised in it and was professional, but I'm being a little bit more blunt how I'm describing it to you. But I did let them know that I went out of my way to give them this information. This is definitely what was advertised that they were purchasing, and that they are available because each individual image, I do own them, and it's work for me to edit them. And just like anybody else, I need to be paid for my time. And it's that easy. Yeah. And, I thought about something else that I've done in the past that's kind of like bit me in the butt. And I don't think it was fair to my clients either. And that was putting too many images in the proof gallery. Yeah. It makes their job harder. And how it affected me negatively was that it took them so much longer than I allowed them in my contract to make their selection, because they were so torn. They were just so torn on making those decisions. And it is hard. As a mom, I know I can understand that it is hard to let go of images that you love, but you're not in your budget at that moment. So right. I think that keeping those galleries a little bit smaller will help you in the long run, as well as your clients.
Yeah. Another disadvantage is, especially if you're doing outdoor stuff, and it looks like it's going to rain or something happens and you have to reschedule. Then you're having to reschedule all of those clients. You're not just working with one client's schedule. You're working with, multiple client schedules. So that's also frustrating, and the disadvantage of mini sessions. But they can be worth it. You just have to make it worth it. You have to price yourself. You have to not overbook yourself. You have to be upfront with your clients. Like, another thing that is important is to where you can just get on a roll with minis is making your clients aware ahead of time of what they need to do, what time they need to be there. So I send out an email, right after they book, with what they can expect. I state they need to be, this is your time that you selected for the mini session. You need to be here at that time. And actually I tell them to try to be there at least 5 minutes early. And I say, if they're late, then that's less images and less time during their session. And again, my sessions are 10 minutes. So that's, that's even less time that they have with me. But It's so important. Like you have to drill it in their minds.
I see people send out style guides as well. I've seen that, which it can be very helpful because some people do struggle on making those decisions for dressing their family. So that could be a great thing that you can offer as well. I do the same thing though. I do have like a follow-up email that, especially with like the mini sessions, because people will try to rush the horse while I'm still in other sessions. So for me, I'm like, whoa. I let them know too, like if you approach the horse before you're invited, I'll end your session and your session won't take place because of the safety risk. Because a lot of people don't realize that horses are actually big scaredy cats. They get spooked entirely easily. And for me, I'm like, that's like one of the only minis I do all year, and I take it so serious. So I think that you're right. It's our responsibility to give them that information ahead of time. And, that made me think too, I think it's really a great point of why you should probably charge upfront the full price for your mini, because if they don't show up, you are out minus the retainer. Like I charge a retainer a portion of mine, but you're making me think ahead. Like I've had people show up so late that there's less than 5 minutes left in their time slot, and I'm not going to push everybody else's schedule back because of it. So that's something to think about.
That brings up a great point. Yes, you need to have a pretty significant deposit up front, so you won't run into that problem with people just canceling on you. Because you could, in my minis, for my holiday minis, I usually start releasing those in the summer. So, I get all those booked in the summer. So if a client books you and, they're only paying like $50 or whatever, $25 for the deposit, and they book you, and then, September rolls around and they come across another photographer that they are like, oh, they're charging less, but it's kind of this, the same theme or whatever, I'm going to go with them. And so then they don't book with you because they're like, oh, I'm only out $25, $50, whatever. So charging a significant amount up front and letting them know that it's non-refundable, non-transferable either. Like I don't let them transfer that deposit towards a different mini. If they have to cancel with me, they lose that money. Or they can book a full session with me in the future. But they don't get to like transfer it to the next year for, whatever.
Right. And that actually, so I just want to point out too, that this varies state to state, but in my state, for example, it's very much a faux pas to use the verbiage deposit, because in our state, you cannot hold a deposit unless services are rendered. So should somebody pay a deposit to me and I have that verbiage in my contract and my payment site, and they don't show up, they can actually do a chargeback on me and I will lose 100% of the time. So it is very important in state to state to check your laws on that. And for me, I have to use the verbiage retainer. I cannot use, because retainer is saying that you're paying for my time, whether you use it or not, you're paying for my time on this date and this time. So that's something to always consider too, going back into other things to check into while doing minis. Make sure to have that contract in place and be checking your state laws and regulations.
Yep, sure.
Okay. Well, guys, this has been so wonderful. I appreciate all the great questions. And Sara, thank you so much for joining us and giving us all your wonderful little details in your minis. You even have me thinking too, I'm like, maybe I should start charging my full price on my mini sessions. Now you have me thinking on that. So, and is there anything else that you would like to tell our viewers tonight before we sign off? Don't be afraid to charge more for your mini sessions. Don't worry about what the other photographer in your area is doing. Don't worry about what they're charging. Just focus on you. Really determine what you want to get out of that mini session, how much you want to make, how much time you want to invest in that. And then go from there, because seriously, you can really, really get burned out super fast if you're doing it the wrong way. Burnout is very real. And if you guys did not hear Sara, I have to go ahead and remind them that you do have an awesome tutorial in our Summerana membership. And that's in our library on your glitter session. So if you have not already seen it, I highly recommend you go check that out in Summerana's membership. That's summerana.com. And you could find it right there because Sara did an incredible tutorial for us recently and it just released. And if you are a member of our Facebook group, then you will know that we also have launched Talk Tips Thursday. And on Thursday, I will be playing a segment of her tutorial that is free education within our Facebook group. So I hope that you guys enjoy that.
Awesome. And I think I put a link for the Summerana Academy. I don't see it though in the comments.
So we can make sure it's posted. If it's not in there now, we can certainly make sure to have that posted after we end our stream. That way you guys can check that out right by clicking on Sara's link.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Please do let us know if you have any topics that you would like us to discuss in an upcoming Tuesday. And I will see you guys then. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.